Van der Meer.
Thank you, guys. Let me see if I can get this working. There we go. All right. I would do the show of hands to find out who knows what about Roon, but I think what I'm going to do instead is just do the very quick, the quick backstory, and then we'll see how we go. The history of Roon goes back 15 years now, which feels kind of weird, but we launched our first product called Sulus, this same core team that is Roon Labs, in 2006. That was a hardware media server that had storage and network players and touchscreen kiosks, and it was insane. But really, it was the sort of first time we tried to solve this problem of, I've got a big digital music collection, how do I manage it? How do I get it streamed around my house? So that was a multi-room system. But it was focused very much on the user experience that we wanted to give to the music collector. So someone with a large CD collection in those days, that was pre-streaming, pre-tablets and smartphones. It was pretty early days. But like I said, it was our first sort of cut of this. Sulus was acquired by Meridian at the end of 2008, where well, we learned quite a lot about digital audio, I'll say that. It was very interesting. Meridian continued to develop the product line for some time, and we refined what we did actually for the first time. We integrated a streaming service. So Rhapsody had just launched. It was the first streaming service anywhere. What it did was the Sulus system would look at your local files, so your ripped CDs, but then also allow you to interleave streaming content with that. It was the first time we kind of experimented with that, and that's become one of the core aspects of how Roon manages music. So I'll come back to that in a bit. While we were at Meridian, we were approached by HP, weirdly enough, to do an app for their notebooks and desktops. So completely different animal. Sulus was a very sort of super premium hardware solution for the audiophile enthusiast. The HP app was sort of every man's quick access to music, one-click access to internet radio type thing, but it was being deployed on 20 million PCs per year. So it kind of taught us how to do software at a very, very large scale, which is interesting. And in 2015, we started Roon Labs. The idea was, okay, we've done a super premium hardware product, we've done this mass market software product. The world is now ready, NASs are cheap, networks are fast, everyone's got a phone and a tablet. The time is now to do a specialist product in software. And that was the idea behind Roon. So what we wanted to help people do was to organize all their music and to get it playing on all their boxes, basically, broadly speaking. That's what we were trying to do. So Roon, when we talk about it, we it's a little soft, but the idea is that it's a rich user experience, which I'll show you a bit about, and it's a platform for network audio within the home. So to take that, it gives you a way to organize and browse your music, a way to play it back on all the devices in your home. And notably, the thing that we learned from being embedded inside Meridian was that it doesn't make sense for us to be married to an audio brand. We need to be Switzerland in the audio world. People are very, very picky about which brands they like, which brands they don't, whatever. We decided it's very important to let the customer make their own choice there about which audio hardware they want to use. So our go-to-market strategy has been to partner with as many audio brands as possible to let customers make that choice themselves and not interfere with it. Roon will work with very nearly anything that makes sound on the planet at this point. That's very much been our goal. I'll get into each of these in more detail, of course. Okay, the first problem was the user experience problem. I grew up collecting LPs and later CDs, and one of the things that we felt was missing in the transition from physical to digital media was all this stuff, the pretty pictures and the lyrics and the credits and who did what and who mastered it. And all that information is not something that has been sort of top of mind either in file tagging or even later in streaming services. That's not information that you necessarily have access to. We felt it's important context to the music. For the diehard fan, which the audiophile generally is, knowing a bit about the music is as important as listening to it. So that was the first problem we set out to solve. The next one was that multi-zone audio has been fraught with peril over the years, in that there were a variety of conflicting proprietary protocols. There were some efforts at standards, actually referring back to Phil's mention about how to troubleshoot UP&P. It tells you something about the state of that. It's even the standards efforts were very, very difficult to get products working together. That's not very interesting. I'll come back to that. This is prettier picture. This is the sort of the walled garden problem, which is that there are more and more networked audio products on the market, and they are increasingly siloed, which is just the way technology develops in this day and age. Company A comes along with their system that does everything, and Company B comes along and competes, and they don't interoperate. And so for customers, that's kind of a lousy situation because you've got all these devices, they don't work together. You need 3 different apps for 3 different ecosystems, and everything's complicated. So bridging this gap was an important goal for us. On the user experience side, I made reference to metadata earlier. Roon, what Roon does basically is to look at the music that you have. That could be files on a NAS or on a hard drive, or it could be streams from Qobuz or Tidal or whatever. It identifies your music, and it basically pulls together metadata from a variety of different sources about that music. So that could be artwork, it could be review, artist bios, credits for an album, lyrics, the concert, so tour dates, upcoming concert dates for those artists. I'm not sure whether, it may not be relevant actually to do a demo here, but I wanted to point out, this is basically what Roon's doing, is it looking at your music and finding out all the information about it and presenting it to you. So you can browse music by whatever you like, by being able to browse classical music, for example, not by artist and album and track, but by composer and composition and performance and conductor and soloist and all that kind of stuff. Roon lets you slice and dice your music and look at it any way you like. So in that sense, it's very much we call it the music player for music lovers. That's the idea. It's very music aware as a user interface. These are just pretty pictures. On the network audio platform side, this is sort of the second of these bundles. Roon speaks a number of well-known protocols. So AirPlay, Chromecast, the protocol that Sonos is based on, but then also equally it works with USB audio devices of pretty much any description. It plays audio over HDMI to AV receivers. It'll do multi-channel that way. It also speaks a number of other protocols that are sort of semi-proprietary in the interest of interoperability. Those include LIN, KEF, Meridian, Squeezebox. So we built support for all those protocols into the product in the interest of serving this goal. That if you're running Roon somewhere and you have a device plugged into your network, Roon will see it and know how to communicate with it and stream your audio to it. There's a bunch of challenges that come with that, in the sense that if you take, for example, I didn't realize there was a prohibition on talking about brands. I talk about brands pretty freely, so I'm sorry if that's bad. But if you have, for example, a Sonos Play 1, that can only play 44.1 or 48K 16-bit audio. It can't do anything higher than that. You've got a DSD file on your NAS. There's no way that you can bridge that gap. So what Roon will do is transcode that DSD file from DSD to PCM, downsample as needed, and whatever else needs to be done to that, to make it play, or to make it possible to play that file on that Sonos Play 1. So it's not just about being able to talk to the thing, it's about making that hardware device do what the customer expects. Because the customer doesn't know, some customers don't know the difference between DSD and PCM, and they don't want to know. So our goal there is to kind of make that just work always. Obviously, your mileage is going to vary playing a DSD file on a Sonos Play 1, right? The point is that in terms of the customer experience, you may have a fully, high performance hi-fi set in the lounge room, let's say, and then you've got that Play 1 on the kitchen counter. It's not about performance necessarily, it's about it just working. So the idea is performance where it's appropriate and just functionality being consistent everywhere. This is obviously a no-no slide, but that's just, many partners that we're working with. Is that all right? Okay. I heard earlier there was but anyway, we're working with 70 brands now in the Roon Ready program, and then a bunch more in Roon Tested. Roon Ready, to give you an idea, Roon Ready is where a hardware manufacturer has taken our software SDK and actually embedded it in their hardware product. So that device is now speaking our own protocol, which allows us to do discovery on the network, obviously, high-res streaming, and also two-way serial control. So for example, if the device has a front panel display, Roon will be able to send cover art for the now playing album and display it there. It will be able to control volume, transport, and whatever else over the network. That's what Roon Ready gives you. So it's sort of our deepest level of integration. What we tried to do in every respect was to make it, was on the performance side, get it to audiophile standard, but in terms of usability, we're looking, I mean, it sounds a little lame to say, but we're looking for Apple-like experience in terms of usability. It just always works the way you expect it to. So Roon Ready devices, that's kind of that's why we have our own certification program for that. It's not something you can just slap on your product. You actually have to go through the whole certification process and implement the software yourself, whatever. But it does lead to a great user experience. We've got 70 brands doing that now. Roon Tested is sort of the catch-all for everything else. So if you have a USB DAC, that can't be Roon Ready because Roon Ready requires that it be a network device. So Roon Tested just means we've gotten the device, we've tested it, we've put it through its paces. All of its capabilities are stored in the Roon database, so when you plug it in, we know what to stream to it, what not to stream to it, all that kind of stuff. It's just a sort of a seal of approval that yes, it works. I want to share some information that we've kind of gathered about our own user base. It's interesting for different reasons. Geographically, our coverage is actually weirdly global, more than we expected. We introduced localization into the app, and we've actually crowdsourced our localization. When we did the HP app, we hired a translation agency to translate the app into all these different languages, and it was just miserable because if you go to a translator and say, I want a translation in your language for the word play, I mean, that's in our world that means something very, very specific. Generically, anyway, the translations were a real disaster. So what we've done with Roon is just gone to our own community and say, guys, if you speak a particular language, please contribute to the translation. That's what we've done. We've got, I think, 14 languages in the app now. They're all user generated, and the translations are fantastic. This, I think, will be of particular interest to you guys. We've been looking at the data. Roon obviously sits on a customer's network and figures out what it can talk to. That's its job. So we get a little bit of insight into what people have and what they use. So what we see here is, of the protocols that we support, we expected that people would be an AirPlay house or this house or that house, and what we find is that that's not the case at all. Very often, actually most of the time, you're looking at 2 or 3 different protocols in use in a single home. And this is maybe more interesting, probably to the point of the first talk today about the sort of smaller smart audio devices becoming so prevalent now. We certainly, back in the Sulus days, generally speaking, a system was a one-zone system, and if it wasn't one, it was 2. Sulus could do, I think, 5 at the time or whatever, but no one ever did that, is what we saw in those days. What we're seeing now is that multi-room is very, very common. You may need to be able to speak to different types of devices to get to all of them, but we've got, to think that we have 7 rooms in use now, and we have accessible devices in 7 rooms in some cases. It's pretty outrageous. The point here actually is, and this is something as we communicate with dealers, what we're trying to get across is that yes, Roon, our roots are all about user experience and browsing and how you interact with the music collection, all the soft stuff. But the plumbing aspect of it is actually quite cool, right? You have someone coming in for a 2-channel hi-fi sale. Every one of those people should be fair game to become a multi-room sale. Well, that might not have been, or actually flip it over. You have someone who comes in as a Sonos customer. Well, without Roon, all you can sell that customer is another Sonos, right? That's all there is because they're locked in that ecosystem. So by doing this, what we've said is, why not put the appropriate piece of kit in the appropriate location. In the lounge room, you've got the super high performance craziness, but in the bathroom, you don't need that. That's not necessary, right? So you put the appropriate device in the appropriate location, because Roon will talk to all of them. It allows you to turn basically any customer into a multi-room customer. This is just some little bit of data about system value. So what we're looking at here is, well, these are the interesting numbers, the sort of mean system value of the audio equipment, which is $6,800, and then the whole system. So that's including smart TVs and tablets and other things attached to the system. So this is what we see among our current customers. The way Roon works is what Roon is actually a little bit different too. I mean, you're about to hear from Benoit about Coblas. Roon is not a streaming service. Roon is not, strictly speaking, a hardware product. What Roon is designed to do is to sit in the middle and kind of negotiate between content, the audio hardware. It's designed to sort of be the traffic cop of all of this stuff. So you have one app to control everything, one app to browse all your music, regardless of where it comes from. That's what Roon is. So the piece of software that does that is what we call the core. That can run on a PC, it can run on a NAS, or it can run on our Nucleus product, which is the server that we developed in collaboration with Intel to kind of make this a little bit easier. What we're finding increasingly, depends on the market, but I think worldwide the trend is there that there are fewer people that are comfortable having a PC committed to this role in their home. There are fewer and fewer homes where a full-time PC is even really a thing now that people are doing so much on their mobile devices. So the idea of Nucleus was, here's a device that's power efficient. You just take it home, plug it in, it does everything. You don't need to worry about it being on or off. There's no chance that someone's going to slip it into their briefcase and run off with it. So the idea of Nucleus was really to be this Roon core in a very reliable turnkey kind of way. So the Roon core sits on the network, manages all the music. You control it with apps for mobile devices or computers, and it streams to your audio devices. To my point earlier, what it will do is aggregate your content. So that could be your files on local hard drives, NAS, wherever you store your files. Streaming content from Tidal and Coblas, and also internet radio. And then so that's not really a great diagram, but hopefully it gives you some sense. If anyone has any feedback on how to do a better diagram, I'm all ears. But the idea is that Roon, or the Nucleus in this case, sits in the middle and manages all the streaming. We've also been quite aggressive in terms of supporting whatever the audiophile requirements are. Our first version shipped without support for DSD, which we didn't think was a really big mistake, but it turns out it was a massive one. So within 30 days, we pushed an update that included DSD support. We've been very responsive. We have a very, very vocal audiophile community that loves to complain and demand features, and we like to think we're very responsive to them. So far, it's done us pretty well. So we have MQA decoding, core decoding built into the product, DSD support, but we're always listening for what is the feature that audiophiles want. We've done more and more with DSP lately, so room correction, EQ, various types of calibration tools, crossfeed for headphones, that sort of thing. It's sort of a mixed bag when it comes to DSP. Some people love it, some people hate it, but we're trying to support everything that people are asking for. Also, increasingly, we're trying to integrate with devices that are not just audio renderers. So our display feature works with Chromecast, or can work with actually any device that can run a web browser can do this. But basically, you can take your Now Playing display for a particular room and throw it up on a smart TV or any Chromecast device, and it'll show your Now Playing info, or it'll show you scrolling lyrics for the sort of karaoke style mode, if you like. But it's just it's a cool way to we think, to bring another piece of context to the music listening experience. In a retail environment, it's actually very cool. We're working with Magnolia in the States so that every TV in their Magnolia stores will be showing the now playing information for something that's playing on one of the devices as a way to get the customer into the experience. It's not just about, hey, this one sounds great and so does that one and here's the price. Give them something to enrich the experience a little bit and to pull them in. So that's, I don't know, it's kind of a fun feature. That's just a shot of Nucleus. So we have some features that we've made specific to Nucleus on the integration side. We have API for Crestron and for Control 4. Those are only available with Nucleus. So quite a lot of the features of Nucleus we make available in a free software package for the sort of DIY user to download. I think some people think that's really, really weird. Our view is that the customer who is really interested in saving 500 quid and willing to spend the weekend getting it working with parts from Amazon is a different person to the one who's going to buy that, and they can coexist happily with our offering. I think someone who wants the turnkey experience and wants the reliability, wants support, wants Crestron and Control 4 integration, doesn't care so much and values their weekend more than the 500 quid. But just to be aware, if you ever, you give that away, yes and no. There's a reason we give it away. The idea is to reach everyone. And that's it for this day. I can do a demo if that's interesting. I guess that a lot of you guys probably know a little bit about how Roon works, but or if you have questions or whatever, let me know what you want me to do.
Just 1 minute. Quick obvious one. Spotify.
We're very likely never going to work with Spotify because they don't, and they're. Well, I mean, it makes sense for their business. They understand that their brand is having the customer in their app, and the minute they don't have that, they don't have the differentiators that Cobus has. So they can't lose the customer from their app.
I just want to say, I've had Roon at home for a while now. I'm a big Cobus fan, so to have the two integrated together for me was the best thing ever.
That's good.
But this meant I was able to sell a job just recently, and I was able to actually integrate name into the Control 4 project because of the Roon.
Oh, right.
It was the best thing ever. I mean, I loved it. I couldn't believe it also, and I could sell customer what he wanted to hear, not what he had to have. And the user interface across the touch panels and everything was the same.
See, this is, it's really foolish that I don't, you're hired. The idea here is that there, particularly in the high end of performance audio devices, there's very little by way of control system support. So if a device is Roon ready, then that means that you can use the Nucleus to integrate with Crestron or Control 4, and you can control that Roon ready device via Roon, which is, it's actually a very cool angle.
Is Roon Radio ready to ship yet?
Well, yes, and actually that's the thing that's not in this deck, which is ridiculous. I have to update that. But there's a feature that we shipped in our most recent update a few weeks ago. That's probably the biggest step that we've made, I think, in terms of just a purely technological innovation for us, which is that we've always had a feature called Roon Radio. The idea there was that you'd play a song, and if you didn't play something after it, or an album, or whatever it is you played, it would pick music sort of similar to that from your library, which made sense, right? I'd play an Eagles track, and then it plays some, I don't know, Steely Dan or something vaguely loosely related, and on and on and on, and that was great. People were quite happy with it, but we decided that it was a little bit, it was limited in the sense that if you had a great record collection, you'd get some pretty cool results, and it would be very personalized because you'd handpick everything. But what would be even cooler is if we could extend that experience now to play in that stream, to play music that wasn't in your collection, that you hadn't handpicked, but that was going to, that you would like as much. So we implemented our first machine learning system to kind of look at the usage data of our customers. What's interesting is that our customers, being who they are they're sort of niche listeners. They're not broad. They don't just listen to pop or whatever. They sort of plumb the depths of the subgenres that they love, and so the data that we get back from that is outstanding. We get all this very, very specialized data about these very specific subgenres, So when you come in and play something like Niels Fromm, which is not mainstream, you're going to get a great radio experience from that because our machine learning has been based on our own users listening. So now we can play you music that's not from your collection. So now radio has become a discovery tool more than just play me comfortable stuff from my record collection. It's actually show me new stuff. And the reviews have been outstanding. We torture tested it for quite some time, but the reviews have been very, very positive. It's a great mix of familiar music and new music. The goal here is a tricky one, is to be the perfect radio station that's completely personalized. I think we've made a pretty good first cut at it, and that's something we'll be improving over time.
Are there any plans to distribute demo accounts for Clarity members for their stores?
Absolutely, yes. How am I going to distribute those?
Email?
I've got everybody's email addresses.
That's how we're going to do it. Yeah, we'll do. Phil will send you a link that you can go in, sign up. Our objective is to have everyone who works in the industry. We want them using Roon, right? So comp accounts are something that no problem for us to set up. So we'll send you a link. You can sign up. Usually within 24 hours. What
are the simple ways to add to radio stations?
For internet radio?
Yeah, we can't sort of copy paste ours.
Yeah, that's really an embarrassment, and it's one that's well known. We're very, very honest. We've had a feature on every release schedule for every release for 2, 3, I don't know, since the dawn of time. That's radio directory is what we call it, which is basically more of a tuning style directory of all known radio stations. Maybe not all known, but at least the ones that matter. And then the approach that we're taking is to crowdsource again, because our customers have great taste in internet radio stations, and some of them have done the embarrassing hard work of copying and pasting. So I don't know when it's going to happen. It desperately needs to. It's happening. It will happen. Yes.
Hello. Is there a way you can integrate audio via YouTube as well?
There is a way. We have not done that way. The challenge originally was a T's and C's problem. You used to have to display the video with the audio, and since we had no mechanism for doing that, we couldn't. It is a weird, wild world out there, though. I mean, if anyone who has kids has probably seen this, YouTube being used as a streaming service. It's so bizarre to me, but I agree that it would be a cool feature. It's one that we've been talking about also for years, just not quite yet. It seems like it could be possible.
Yeah.
Did you say you could run a brief demo for us?
Yeah. Let me just do the. I know you've gone to make it very quick.
Might say one other thing, but another great feature about this version now, K-Buzz, is the projection version.
Yes, I'll show that in a second. Yeah, absolutely. So here, I just picked this album because it has almost every type of metadata that Roon supports, so it's interesting. So this album is a folder full of FLAC files sitting on the SSD in that laptop. It has no tags of, probably has artist album track tags, and that's about it. So everything you see here, Roon has added. It hasn't touched the files. We never ever touch people's files, but it's stored in Roon's internal database. So anything you see here about this album was figured out. Some of it was computed, right? Like the dynamic range of the album, you can see there. This is an audio format. That was figured out. But everything here was downloaded from our cloud service, which handles metadata, aggregates metadata from 7, I want to say, different data sources at the moment, and that's something that we're always expanding. So here you see a review for the album, the original release date. If there's sometimes we'll have a recording date and the original release date for this version, whatever. This album is interesting because we not only have credits for the album, so these are broken out into composition and production and whatever, but also, also have track level credits. So you can see, in this case, down to the Dap Kings playing horns on this track. So where we have access to it, we'll even show track level credits. And everything you see here, by the way, also is a link. So this isn't just, here's the list of people who played. From there, I can actually click through, and I'm going to show you one of the cool things. You see in track 2, Justin Timberlake was listed as an additional guest artist on that list of credits. But since guest artist is kind of an important kind of credit, we pull it out and show it right in the track list there. This is all little soft stuff that gives you an idea of how we approach this. So now I can click through to Justin Timberlake, and I'll get his bio and his link to his Facebook page and whatever else. And here you can see I don't have any Justin Timberlake albums, but he does show up here under that Pharrell record as an appearance, which is cool, right? Actually, I'm going to Pharrell is even better. This is also another good thing here. He's got concerts coming up, so these will be listed in terms of their geographical proximity to where we are right now, or whatever. So the idea is that when you're listening to an artist is exactly the moment that you want to know that they're playing live near you soon. So you can click through to there, buy the concert tickets and whatever, the whole thing. So here you see there's one album of his, but in this case here we're looking at Cobas. We've got his albums, singles, and what we've done here is because we've collaborated with Cobas and we've ingested their whole catalog, we've pre-computed all of the albums that he did with Snoop Dogg, for example, and with Britney Spears and whatever. There's tons of other appearances. I picked Pharrell because he collaborates with everyone. But the idea here is that if you imagine that this one artist or this one album was your jumping off point, if all I knew about the world of music was that I like Pharrell Williams or I like one song of his, this is giving me a really cool jumping off point into music that's closely related to it, but not just that. So that's kind of at the core of what we're trying to do going forward, is to make this experience of finding music that you're likely to enjoy, but that's not in your comfort zone. I think that's where we can add the most value. So here, artists that are related to Pharrell. So for example, we'll break it out into influencers and followers, similar collaborators, all different kinds of categories. So for example, let's see, Prince was obviously an influence, so I can click through to Prince. And like I said, everything is a link. So I can go to Prince was obviously, he played across a ton of different genres, but I could pick one of these and say R&B. And now I'm looking at a view of R&B that's kind of skewed towards the music that's in my collection. So it's R&B according to Eno. So artist highlights, some album highlights, and then you can nerd out and drill down into soul, and then from there to Motown. The idea is for the real fan. You can go hunting and pecking for days, but likewise. But if you don't care, like my wife, for example, she'll just hit that shuffle button, just like play me some Motown. Just get on with it. Do the work. I'm going to be the one on the iPad, whatever. So the idea is we serve both use cases pretty well, which is why the multi-room thing is cool too. And my house is the acid test, so I have 3 kids, and everyone in the house uses Roon in all the different rooms, and with different levels of nerdiness.
Connected by Wi-Fi.
Not on your life.
Okay, I'm gonna wrap it up, I promise. Classical is just the way we handle classical music is a cool example of the music sensitivity that I was talking about. So classical doesn't fit particularly well into the whole artist album track kind of hierarchy. So what we do is we start with the composer browser. And I'm just going to give you an example. If we go to Beethoven, for example, we have a bio just as if Beethoven were an artist, but instead of seeing albums and tracks down here, what we're looking at is his compositions, his works. So if I go pick the first one, Moonlight Sonata, here we're looking not at a recording of the Moonlight, but a description of the work itself in the context of the repertoire, why it's significant, Here you can see over there in the top right, you got movements that make it up. You'll see year it was composed, period, instrumentation, form, all the stuff that is not at all germane to pop music or to jazz or to anything like that, but is critical for classical. And then what we're looking at here is the 3 performances that I have of the Moonlight on this laptop. So if I then go into the Brendel, let's say, now I'm looking at the album, but the 3 tracks that, the constituent tracks that make up the 3 movements are highlighted, and with one click I can play the whole piece. So for the classical listener, this is, we think, fairly unique. Actually, one thing, because I'm on, oh no, actually it's loaded. So here you can see, back to the Moonlight for a moment. In my library, which is on this laptop, I have the 3 performances, but on Cobos there are 509 others. So if the Moonlight Sonata is your thing and you would like to audition 500 different recordings, this is the sort of the classical use case that we're trying to enable. And then one last thing, and then I'll let them walk them up here because.
What's your favorite version of Moonlight Sonata?
Where is it? Support-wise, I used it was online. Where is it?
You mean the community support? Well, our support and QA teams both monitor that and answer questions there. The support guys are all in the US, but in 3 different cities. And QA is Ukraine and Russia. Yeah, so they're all over the place. We're all, we don't have an office for everyone. It's a pants optional job.
So that's why they told me I should come and work for you.
This is one last thing I just wanted to point out. We call this screen Discover. What this is, it's different every time you come to it. The idea is, it's just looking for insights in your own music collection. So things you would only know if you had read the liner notes to every album you have in your collection. It's just designed to be a sort of a jumping off point with a bit more serendipity. So if if it hadn't occurred to you today to listen to Outkast, I consider myself an Outkast fan, but frankly, it had not occurred to me today to listen to Outkast. So that's what that's there for. This page, it works like a Pinterest page. It scrolls like a scroll for days and days and days. The idea is it's there to inspire you, music that you've listened to before or maybe haven't listened to in a while. We have a bunch of different algorithms for picking what goes on the screen, but this is the kind of user experience that we're after. I think that is actually really good to me. Any other questions before I do that? Very quick one. Why did you name Roon? It's not really a good read. I mean, we agonized over it. We couldn't agree on it. The only thing that is sort of a constant in our team is that my business partner has this fascination with double O's, and every project that he's ever done has a double O in it somewhere. So that's always gotten. Sulus was 2 double O's. There's no really. Someone said Roon, and we're like, well, that's kind of cool, like runestone, like Roon. Okay, that's kind of interesting. And then, but then if you look it up, you get the phonetic spelling, and from Google throws it up with the phonetic spelling. It's an R-double-O-N. And I was like, okay, we're done. We've got the double O's. Job done. That's it. We had been in a stalemate for weeks.
Down the pub.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, what did you do?